In this video, I'm going to teach you how to hack the brain of your audience with story. I'm Dr. Dan. I'm the neuro story guy. That means I'm passionate about the brain, but I'm more fired up to help you take your message to the masses to create change. Now let's jump right in here. When I say hack, it's a positive thing.
The ultimate hack.
There's a lot of people out there talking about how to hack things, and I want to set the record straight. Hack can be a very positive thing. In fact, it's a shortcut. A hack is a shortcut, and in this case, we're talking about how to shortcut the audience to believe you, to trust you, and to do something with the power of story. Let me make myself clear on this one point. You gotta listen. Come in here, listen. Using the power of story is not a way to help engage, inspire, and influence your audience. It is the way, and I'll prove it to you. I get fired up about the brain, as you guys know, and here's the deal. The reason why story is so powerful is because of the way your brain is wired. We are literally wired for story. And I can expound on that. We're actually wired for social interaction. If you look at some of the data out there, you look at the research, the people with the greatest success are not the ones with the highest IQ. The people who create the most success and influence are the ones with the highest EQ, which is emotional intelligence, which means they're good in a social setting. Now, I'm an introvert, so I don't consider myself great in a social setting. However, my empathy and ability to tell story actually has turned out to be one of the greatest assets to my success, and it will be the same for you. We have been led to believe, and you're one of them, that we have evolved over time and that our brains evolved and that we are abstract, thinking, reasoning, rational beings, and that our decisions come from this deliberate rationalization. That could not be further from the truth. Because when you learn how to use it and leverage it, the game changes. And in this video, I'm gonna teach you the 3 Ps to make every story you tell land in a way that's gonna get your audience to be inspired, to be engaged, and ultimately to take action on that which you tell them to do. So Rolf Jensen, a futurist, said this: the highest paid person in the first half of the century will be the storyteller. All professionals, including advertisers, teachers, entrepreneurs, politicians, athletes, and religious leaders, will be valued for their ability to create stories that will captivate their audiences. So there you have it. Case in point. The highest paid people of this century and every century moving on from here is going to be the storytellers. So my question to you is, why aren't you leveraging story the way you could or should be? That must stop now. And now watching this video, I'm going to teach you how to hack your audience's brain so that they listen to you, they engage with you, and they'll take action on the very thing you want them to do. So I told you there'd be 3 Ps. The first P to making your story land is that it's going to require a protagonist or a person. And so when you study story, as I have, every great story has a person. And that person, the protagonist, is key, but not like you think. Many of you think that you don't have a story because you think that the external events of your story were not significant enough to tell. But when you study story, the important aspect of it is that it's not about the external events. It's about the internal emotion that you had and then overcame, which is the part that builds the trust and hacks into their brain like nothing else. When you start to create your story, or maybe you have a story and you need to create a better one, you're gonna start with the protagonist, which in your story is you. And so you encountered some things, but one of the things I teach a formula called the impact story formula. And I go through that in this book, The Trust Formula. And it starts off with one major aspect, and that is your upbringing. So we emphasize your upbringing. Why? Because the way you were raised matters. Let me give you an example. If you got on the big red bus in London and you were walking to your seat and you saw somebody with the logo on their shirt of your high school, and you get in a conversation with them and you find out they actually graduated 5 years after you did from the same high school. You lived within a mile from each other, and here you are on the other part of the world meeting each other. I'm going to tell you what happens is an immediate bond.
What? Did we just become best friends?
That immediate bond allows you to trust that person. And for the rest of your time in that foreign country, you will be bonded to this person and ultimately have a level of trust that could be created no other way with no other person in that continent. Why is this important? Because our upbringing relates to our audience. In this case, they know the same teachers you had, they know the same schools you went to, they know the same churches that were in your neighborhood, they went to the same parks. There's something powerful about the bond that occurs when we relate with people's upbringing. So the first thing you're gonna dissect as a person, right? The first P is you, the person, the protagonist, is your upbringing. Your upbringing matters. It can connect like nothing else can. The second P is the problem. Follow me on this one. In fact, listen very close. No conflict, no story. No problem, no story. Think back to all the stories you heard growing up. My favorite, Amelia Bedelia. There's always a conflict. So name any movie. In fact, in the first 12 minutes of every movie, there's a conflict that's very clear. It has to happen in order for us to pay attention. In your story, you had a person, you, the protagonist. The second P is you had a problem. You encountered a problem. Now, mind you, that problem doesn't need to be a physical problem. It could be a mental problem. It could be a challenge that you had internally that you had to overcome. The reality is, without a problem, you don't captivate your audience in order to hack their brain so they trust you and they do what you want them to do. Research out of McMaster University put people in a brain scan and they wanted to evaluate what do people think about when they hear a story. When we hear a story, we think about the main character's thoughts, their desires, their motives, and then we put ourselves into the shoes as if we're going through that. It's so powerful. I gotta tell you this. This research called neurocoupling, when you hear a compelling story, your brain is fired in the same areas as if you were experiencing it. Why is that important? Because when you can tell a compelling story, you literally bring them right into the story. And so when I look at the research, it's not about the external events, it's about the internal emotion. This is why you need to know how to tell a compelling story that's less to do with the external events and how big it was, and more to do with the beliefs and the emotions you experienced or overcame. This reminds me of serving on a jury in Atlanta, Georgia, back in 2016, and I was on a case for an attempted murder trial.
Gasp.
And at the end, we saw days of testimony and bullet holes and guns and police officers and doctors, and we saw it all. But then we deliberated in a room after two guys got up and told a story of why this person did certain things. These two stories were completely different, but all the evidence, the facts, and the data were exactly the same. And their job was to try to help us understand the motive of this person and why they did what they did so that we could either make them guilty or prove them innocent. This is so powerful because the same reason why a lawyer is going to create a closing argument, which is a story to help us think a certain way and decide a certain way, is the same way you're going to tell a story. Your audience is going to immediately know your motive. They're going to know your why, and that is exactly going to be the bridge that's going to help them see, wow, you're in this for me, not for you. It's not about self-interest, it's about their interest. And this is where most salespeople and honestly most marketers get this thing wrong. You can hack your way into their brain if you do it the right way, and it all revolves around a story. And the third P is, what is the principle that you're trying to get across? As I've alluded to, a principle is going to be this disbelief that your prospect has, this inner conflict or this inner limiting belief that they can't do it or they can't overcome.
You can do it!
So when I tell you the story about the fact that I took 2 English classes in college so I could avoid a speech class, it makes you feel that, hey, if he had that perspective and now he can speak to thousands of people on a stage or on videos, then maybe I can do it too. And so I'm gonna tell you, I was scared of my own shadow. I'm an introvert. I'm the middle of 8 kids. I did not speak unless spoken to. The last thing I would have ever thought, in fact, I would have been so afraid to think that I'm gonna speak for a living and help people communicate. But my current belief was a misbelief, and I just needed to see other people show me the way and, more importantly, overcome my own insecurities. That's what your story does. And so when you think about that third key of your principle, what principle are you trying to teach? What principle are you trying to get across? It really should come down to helping them overcome their misbeliefs about time, money, skills, capabilities, or resources. And so your principle through your story, which was led by a problem and started with your upbringing, is going to transform their understanding and their belief in themselves. So guess what? Now they do what you want them to do. So those are the 3 Ps. There's a person, there's a problem, and there's a principle. When you do this, I'm telling you right now, you will hack the brain of your audience in a very positive, good, ethical way. And I'll also tell you, don't get left behind on this. As Rolf said, the wealthiest people are going to be those who could tell stories. It's turned out to be true, whether it be in politics, in business, in marketing, or anything in between. Make sure you're implementing. If I can help you, let me know. This book right here can help you. There's links below if you want to jump on a call with me and my team. We can help you. This is what we do all day, every day, whether it be in your marketing, your branding, your conversions, your retention, or even in your own life and your relationships. There's a lot of noise out there. In fact, we're dealing with the most informed, cautious, skeptical buyer of all times. And so it requires some hacks. It requires some understanding of how that brain works. And you literally can cut through the noise and your message can reach them like nothing else. So there you have it. Hit the like button, leave a comment. Dr. Dan, I'm out.